an interesting start to well, it's going to be a little bit of an interesting start to the week. I haven't seen too much movement. DXY, wait, are we? That's not open, is it? There we go. So yeah, DXY hasn't really done much, to be honest, since we last spoke. Friday's price action was pretty flat. We had a couple of news events last week, but it doesn't really cause any damage, really. Price is just more or less in the same range. But in terms of the overall bias, as I say multiple times a stream, I'm still expecting more upside for the dollar as long as we stay outside of this range, which we've just broken through, which is this range here. As long as we stay above that, that keeps me bullish on the long term. So if we do go through a bit of a dip for the dollar, which I kind of expect at some point, I'm naturally going to be expecting that to be a high low for price to keep pushing higher. So there could be some nice downside for dollar, but the way I see it is that the market is just having a retracement for potentially more upside in the long run. I'm looking at a retest of the high here, which is 107.6, just below the 108 mark. And I'm looking for a retest of that for the high low. This was our last swing low that gave us this high. Of course, you do have some more minor ones in there, but this is the last one because it broke that high. So naturally, we're looking for a pullback of that wave. And if I whip out the Fibonacci from the low to the high, you can see it lines up more or less with the 0.5 of the fib. So if we were to get back down to this area, that would be a healthy pullback. And naturally, I'll be expecting price to bounce, see that high low, and continue back to highs. And of course, expecting something similar in Euro, Pound, and the other USD majors. But I do think there's a good possibility for some downside for dollar, for a bit of a pullback at least. You can see we are becoming a little bit corrective now. Nice momentum initially, but now we're coming a little bit more tired and not really seeing that momentum in its glory as it was maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So with this corrective behavior, normally means the market is due a bigger pullback. Sometimes we could just fly, and of course maybe some news could drive that. But naturally, I'm looking for a bit of a pullback there for dollar, but I'm still looking for more upside longer term. So taking that information to euro, of course, pretty much expecting the exact opposite. This was our last high. That gave us this low, which of course cracked through this low here on the left. So again, looking for a pullback of this leg. You can see it's still pretty corrective to the downside. So it tells me a pullback to the upside is pretty likely at some point. As long as we don't break through this high, that's what keep me bearish on euro. Same thing with the dollar. We quickly scoot back over there. As long as we don't take out this high or low, I'm still pretty much bullish on USD. If we were to crash back down, take out that low, that will definitely look to change my bias. Same thing for euro. If we were to break past that high, I would change my bias and start looking for some buys. But we'll cross that bridge if it happens. For now, still looking at pullback. I'll be mentioning this area of support for a while now, looking for the retest. I was originally looking for the retest over here, but we just missed it by a few pips. Price then had a really nice swing to the downside. So again, still looking for a slightly bigger pullback for euro before continuing to the downside. So I can look for that bigger swing and potentially hold past these lows here as well. Since last week, this level of support has acted as pretty solid resistance. We did have a pretty strong rejection last week on Wednesday there. Hasn't really got going. Nice initial rejection, but looks like we've created some support on the hourly chart, and that's failed to break really. So unless that support breaks, we probably will get that bigger pullback that I'm looking for in euro. But again, still very bearish. If I expand to the higher time frames, weekly chart, still comfortably below that low. If we're to break past that, I'll be looking to change that bias around. So for now, still pretty bearish, still expecting more downside. But yeah, do expect to see a bit of a pullback. At the moment, we are losing that steam. Pound USD, same situation, really. Everything's looking very, very bearish. But again, looking for a pullback initially. If I go to the daily chart for Pound USD, you can see we did have this counter trend line, which price has since gone and broken through, which is great. Well, not necessarily great, it just means more momentum in the market. And naturally, I do expect more of the same, more downside. We've ticked off this low here. We've taken out that. Now I'm expecting price to do the same with this low and eventually with this low here, around 1.18. So I still do have more downside targets for pound. Still a lot of momentum to the downside for pounds. Euro is a bit more corrective. Pound actually had a really nice bearish leg here a couple of weeks ago. So again, looking for a pullback of that. Again, I am drawing my fib from the high here since this is the high that went and broke the low here. So if we can get a pullback to retest this area, that'd be very nice. In between the 0.5 and 0.618, maybe we spike into the 0.618 as well, but that would be a nice area for correction. If pound is just very bearish, we might not see a pullback as big as that. So I have mentioned to keep an eye on this low as well, because should pound USD be very bearish and pound just keep up that weakness, we might only be fortunate enough to get a pullback to retest this low here, around 1.235, and then continue back to the low. So, well, at that point, probably back to that low as well. So essentially pound USD, same thing as euro, just looking for those pullbacks to short. This time I do have a couple areas that do look good, 1.235, 1.25. I'll keep an eye on both of those areas, but it really does depend how much pullback pound wants to see. But yeah, still bearish for now. In terms of dollar CAD, we had a really prolonged consolidation. Looks like price is trying to break the high of that. I'm not quite convinced with the breakout just yet, but it looks like we're on our way. So this is the range we've had, a bit of a fake to the downside, and the fake to the downside. And as you can see, it looks like we are starting to break to the upside. So if we could see a little bit more momentum, consecutive bullish candle closes, that will show us that that momentum is sustaining. This is not another fake out, because you can see what happened with the previous fake outs. Closed below, went straight back above into the range. Couple closed below, came back into the same support, right back into the range. In this case, closed below, straight back into the range the following candle. So that kind of did happen here as well. Closed above, and then the next candle came straight back below. Now we're doing it again. Can we go and break that resistance down the lower time frames and really start to push on, or do we just kind of roll back within the range? If that's the case, I'm not really interested with dollar CAD. I'm still very bullish on this pair. Again, I do have a couple weekly target, well, actually one weekly target I'm looking for price to get to, which is this massive level of resistance at 1.465. As you can see, really solid resistance there once, twice again. I do think it's only a matter of time before price does go and test that level again. So I'm looking for a lot more upside for dollar CAD. But in terms of a good opportunity to trade it, we need to see some breakouts of this range. And if price can break to the upside, see some momentum above that, naturally pullbacks for a retest will look, of course, pretty appetizing. If we do see a healthy breakout with a good pullback, that could be a really nice setup. And then you got the weekly level just above us there at 1.465 to target. Or let's say if we were to break out, create a high, that could be a target as well. That'll be up to you. But yeah, just want to see a confirmed breakout, a more confident breakout of that high there before I start to talk about opportunities on the retest. But it looks like we could be heading down that route. So we'll pay close attention to that. But should we close back in the range, like I said, I'll just leave it alone, let it consolidate some more until we eventually get the breakout. Aussie dollar, another one, which I'm expecting a pullback. And this one's been so bearish for a while. We've taken out some major lows on the weekly chart. So in my book, we are due a pullback, most definitely. Again, whether it will happen this week or the week after or the week after that, hard to say. But I'm not really interested in shorting Aussie dollar anymore until we do see that pullback. Because I know for a fact the market is very stretched. We've had a really prolonged move to the downside, which we haven't had for a while, without any kind of real up move. We've taken out some major lows, which we haven't taken out for a while. This one goes all the way back to 2022. So naturally expect to see at least a bounce. And then I do expect the bigger moves still to be to the downside. I'm still looking at this low here at 0.58. However, as I said, I need to see a bit of a pullback first. So jumping back to the daily chart, this is the low, which I do like the look of. I'll be looking for a retest of that area around 0.638. If price can get back up there again, that'll be great. I'll monitor, see how price reacts. If I get my confirmations, more than happy to take some shorts. But at the moment of time, still looking at this as a corrective channel, really, and expecting price to eventually see a bit of a reaction to the upside. I'm not really interested in the buys as well, but yeah, I do expect to see a pullback at some point. And New Zealand dollar, similar situation there. Yeah, another descending channel. Price is still looking very, very corrective. This one hasn't taken out the daily, weekly lows yet. So this one still might have a bit of room to the downside before we go and do that. But again, I do expect to see a bit of a pullback for New Zealand dollar. Very, very stretched. You can see since basically, I think the end of September, actually, the market has actually been falling really, really hard. So I do expect to see a bit of a pullback at some point. And the area I'm looking at is a retest of this low here, which is around 0.58. I wouldn't even mind a slightly bigger pullback to this area here as well, which is 0.585. Both look really good. Both healthy areas of support on the daily time frame, which will be turned resistant. So hopefully you can see a pullback into that area, look for some lower highs, and yeah, continue the shorts to the downside. But I do want to see some upside first for New Zealand dollar. In terms of gold, so gold, I'm looking for the breakout of the range. So 27.20, I want to see price break that high. And then, of course, I'm looking for a push back to the all-time highs, which is all the way up there, 27.87, 27.90, we'll call it. I'm waiting for price to break the high, and then I'll be looking for opportunities on the retest of that, similar to dollar CAD, which we just looked at, waiting for price to break the high confidently. Then, of course, pullbacks, retest, will be the idea, as long as we can stay above that. At the moment, we've kind of rejected the high. Okay-ish. We still could reject it even better and have a bit of a sell-off here. So definitely watch out for that. Don't want to jump the gun. But at the moment, gold for me is still comfortably within this range. You got the equal highs over there, equal lows here. The market has been fluctuating between those two levels. So if we are going to get a breakout and we are going to see bullish momentum sustain for gold, we need to be breaking through these highs here, 27.20. Then we can start to discuss a breakout and a possible move back to 27.87 and probably higher as well. So that's really what I'm waiting for on gold. In terms of silver, we have some bullish structure, which I'm becoming more interested in. I did say a retest of this area I will keep an eye out for. Haven't quite got there yet, but not too far away, to be honest. Looks like we're kind of consolidating the lower time frames right now. I wouldn't be too surprised if we do have a push down to test that area and swing it back up, even if it is just a swing back to the high here. Nothing too crazy. I mean, in the long run, I do expect price to eventually get back to the highs here and probably even further as well. Yeah, that's not quite there yet. I'll be a bit optimistic to try and swing a trade from here all the way to the highs in one go. So yeah, even if it's just back to the highs, that would be great. But I am looking for a bit of a trend to form, similar to what's happened with gold a little bit. And then we can speak about some more long-term opportunities